What's up guys, welcome to episode 3 of the trading course already. Today we're going to talk about something very important, one of the foundations of trading, and that's support and resistance. Now, you may already know what it is, you may have never heard of it, but I do think a lot of people, even people who don't trade, have already heard of support and resistance, because those are key principles of trading. Knowing how support and resistance zones and levels really work and are just not just lines or zones that people draw, that's very important to learn. So even though you already perfectly know what it is, I suggest you just watch this video. It won't take long, and yeah, this is the foundation, so you really need to listen to this very carefully. So support and resistance, two very easy things. Think about support as a floor and resistance as a roof. Support, the floor, it supports the price. It makes sure the price doesn't go lower. Resistance, just vice versa, it makes sure price doesn't go higher. It acts like a roof. As you can see here, I drew something, so the white lines is price candlesticks, and then we have a line up top, resistance, and a line below, support. As I said, support, floor, resistance, roof. That's very important. That's just a very easy way to get to know both. So these levels are places where price struggles to continue the trend. For example, here, price goes up. Of course, it's not perfectly, because support and resistance are always zones, not straight levels, but for this graphic I made clear levels. Price goes up, it struggles in this zone, it goes down. But it comes down here, it struggles to break, it jumps back. It's basically a trampoline. Comes here, resistance too strong, drops. Support too strong, back up. Support and resistance are just zones where price reverses and doesn't continue the trend. Can be a trend on a bigger time frame, but also like now just trend on a very low time frame. Now this is where many beginners make the mistake. You may think, of course, I understand it, but okay, it is like that, trading the market is like that. Why is it important to know the whole information about why this actually works? Now this is very important because it's the first step to learn how liquidity works, what liquidity is, and also how to learn just the whole strategy of price action, because price action is based on liquidity, and this is your first step, your first intro to the topic of liquidity. At support there are a lot of buy orders, and at resistance there are a lot of sell orders. This is also a bit how liquidity works. At resistance there's a lot of liquidity, there are a lot of sell orders, but so when price gets there, a lot of sell orders are there, so they all get triggered and price goes down. Support, same thing. Price goes down, in the support zone a lot of buy orders are triggered, they get filled and price goes up. As I said, think about it like a floor and a roof. That's very important and a very easy way to understand it. So this here is a perfect and beautiful, picture perfect example of support and resistance. So the box here acts as support. You see price taps it multiple times, but there are enough buy orders, so price goes back up. And this zone acts like resistance. You see price taps it, price interacts with it, but there are too many sell orders, so price goes down. And of course, eventually price will break either support or resistance, otherwise you will be in the same range forever, and of course that doesn't happen. So the thing I want to explain with this scenario as well is that support can flip into resistance and resistance can flip into support. You can clearly see it here. So maybe this box is a bit too big, but let's make it this way. So this acts as resistance in this range. We're looking at this right now. So price drops here, we got a new range here. Price bounces between resistance and support. Here finally it breaks resistance, so we get into a new range, as we call it. We're in a new range here, in this range. Now price makes new highs, but we see the old resistance here acting like support, because price goes up, comes down, and here are a lot of buy orders because they want to continue the trend, so price goes up. And then we've got new resistance in this zone, of course. So what you have to remember from this is support and resistance zones can work for several ranges. It's not like we're here, price breaks either support or resistance, and these lines, these zones are worthless. No, as you see right here, perfect example that this resistance box is now support for the next range, and potentially we see price do this, bounce one more time, potentially break it again, back to low, and then it's again resistance. Other scenario is price actually continues the trend, taps the support, breaks the resistance, and then this resistance acts as support for the next range. That's all possible, and these are actual things that happen quite a lot. So you may ask two things now. First being, how can I see where these zones are? And second thing is, if this works for a lot of the times, as you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 bounces before price breaks the current support and resistance, why don't we just trade based off that? We buy at support and we sell at resistance, because that is a strategy people use. You can surely trade based on that strategy, but it's a bit unpredictable, because as you can see, price retraces entirely to here, while the next bounce here, price retraces to here. Of course, you can play it like that, but we at trading, our strategy is more like we want to have a set entry and not just a vague zone. In some setups, we can have a zone or a box with the entry, but this is more like, yeah, we buy in this zone and we sell somewhere there. That's also trading, as mentioned. That's a strategy people use. People are profitable of it, but that's just not our way of trading, even though it looks simple, but in reality it's not that simple as it looks right now, because this is a prime example and not all charts look like this. Prime example of support and resistance, and then resistance flips into support. Now the second thing is, where do these levels come from? Of course, we can't now say, if we look at this, let me remove everything for a second. We can't just look at this piece of price action and say, of course, here will be resistance and support will be this. Yeah, you can't say that because we don't know. There's no data here. There's no data here. Of course, it's a bit, you see price bounce of this, so maybe you can actually already say that this is support. But we always look to previous price action, and this is already a bit of what PA is, what our strategy is. We look at the recent highs and lows. So what did price do here? This is already about PA trading, about price action, but I want to explain it here so you understand the full picture. You had a high here, price drop, made a low here. So price made a low here, then you see, of course, this high, there will be resistance probably, because a lot of people sold here. As you see, there will be resistance. But also, let price range a bit. Of course, when price just dropped here, we can't say, of course, this will be support, this will be resistance, but let price bounce a bit. Now you can see, oh, they made a high here, they failed. So this will be the zone of resistance. Let them make a new low. They see, oh, of course, this is the low, so this will be a bit support. And they made a new low here. Of course, sorry, my explanation isn't the best, and this also maybe doesn't make a lot of sense. But when you start looking at the charts, when you start trading, this is very, very easy. You don't have to be scared of this. If you say, this looks a bit sketchy, a bit difficult, my explanation is probably also not the best, because I don't think this is difficult and I don't really know how to explain it, but it will go naturally. It's very, very easy to understand these things. And later, when you actually start learning price action, you'll know exactly the zones. For example, oh, this is a nice zone here, this hold, price interacts perfectly with it, and you have a nice trade. But that's what you'll learn in the PA trading course. So as I already mentioned, but I want to mention it again, support and resistance zones are not just set lines. It's not one level, it's a zone, because liquidity is most of the time in a zone. As mentioned, we'll learn later how to find the exact places in those zones, but for now you just have to know that support and resistance are zones and not just set levels. So why does it matter? Support and resistance are the basics for everything that comes after. Everything that you don't know yet and will learn later is based, the principles are based off support and resistance, because you want to see price go up and go down. You want people to buy and to sell. That's all basic of, all part of support and resistance. And as mentioned several times, I'm sorry for the repetition, but when you learn to actually say the exact levels and not the zones, you'll base everything off that. Your entry, your take profit, your stop loss, every setup you'll possibly take. So these are the basics. Support and resistance and liquidity are the basics of trading, and surely of price action trading. Again, this was a pretty short video, I think, just very basic concepts. If you want to learn more, if you don't understand it yet fully, in the Discord link in the description is a written text on what support and resistance are with pictures. So when you read that, it will surely become clear what it is and why we value it so much. For now, that was episode 3. You made it so far, and I'll see you guys in episode 4. Bye.